Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I am Dr. Supradip Das, Assistant Professor at the Department of Design, IIT Guwahati. And this is the third module of this course, Introduction to Toy Design. In the previous two modules, we understood why toys are important as artifacts and as enablers of play. Now, let us see why play is important for children, because only then you will be able to create context-relevant toys. This lecture is not about toys. It's about play. Because toys don't create play on their own. Play is an experience, one that emerges through the child, the context, and the affordances we design. To design meaningful toys, we must first understand what play is, how it works, and why it matters. During today's lecture, you will see why defining play is more complex than it appears. We will then look at why play is so important, not just for learning, but for emotional regulation, resilience, identity, and well-being. Finally, we will understand the underlying elements that make play feel playful. By the end of this lecture, the goal is not for you to memorize definitions. Instead, you should be able to recognize play when you see it. You should be able to ask, why is enabling play here? What might be limiting it? You should be able to distinguish play from exploration, work, and games. You should be able to notice when play feels free, flexible, and intrinsically motivated, and when it starts to feel controlled, pressured, or instrumental. Most importantly, you should begin to see play not as something children just do, but as something designers must actively understand, protect, and design for. Play is one of the earliest ways humans engage with the world. Before language, before formal learning, play allows exploration through the body and senses. It is not something children need to be taught explicitly. It emerges naturally. Yet, despite being so universal, play is often underestimated or misunderstood. We tend to see it as leisure or distraction rather than as a serious developmental force. However, research consistently shows that play underpins learning and creativity. Play allows children to rehearse actions, emotion, and social roles safely. It is flexible, adaptive, and responsive to context. This makes play difficult to define but extremely powerful. As designers, this ambiguity is important to notice. If play were fixed, design would be simple. Because play is fluid, designers must understand it deeply. The dictionary definition of play already shows us its breadth. Play can mean engaging in activity or enjoyment rather than utility. It can refer to participating in sports, pretending, or entertaining oneself. Even linguistically, play spans physical, emotional, and social action. This multiplicity hints that play is not one thing. It can be energetic or calm, solitary or social. It can involve objects or exist without them. Importantly, the definition contrasts play with seriousness and obligation. This distinction will come up repeatedly in play theory. Play often exists outside productivity and outcomes. That does not make it meaningless. It makes it exploratory. For designers, this already suggests that play resists narrow framing. Webster's dictionary lists over 30 meanings of play. For children, several of these meanings are particularly relevant. Play includes pretending to be something else, like a butterfly or a parrot. It includes using objects in flexible ways, like blocks or costumes. It includes games, jokes, and physical movement. These definitions already blur boundaries between activity, imagination, and equipment. They also show that play is not limited to toys. A child can play with a role, an action, or an idea. This reminds us that toys support play but do not define it. The same object can invite play or not, depending on context. Play emerges from interaction, not from objects alone. In early childhood research, play is often defined not by what children are doing, but by how they are experiencing it. Play is done for its own sake, not to achieve an external goal. For example, when a child stacks blocks and knocks them down repeatedly, they are not trying to build a tower correctly. They are enjoying the action itself. In play, the process matters more than the outcome. A child mixing colors with paints may not care what the final pictures look like. The joy comes from smearing, blending, and experimenting. Play is also flexible. Objects and roles can shift meaning at any moment. A spoon can become a microphone, a magic wand, or a rocket, depending on the child's imagination. Children also show positive emotional engagement while playing. You will often see smiles, laughter, focused concentration, or excited repetition, all signs that the activity feels playful to them. These criteria distinguish play from work or structured task. Play is also different from exploration, which often precedes it. Exploration is about learning how something works. Play begins once familiarity allows freedom. Games differ because they usually have explicit goals and rules. These distinctions help us categorize experiences without rigid boundaries. They also help designers understand what turns an activity into play. Huizinga described play as an activity that exists outside ordinary life. For example, when children sit down to play a board game, they step out of everyday routines like schoolwork or drudgery and enter a different mode of engagement. Play is not serious in intent, but it is deeply absorbing in experience. A game of Ludo may not matter in real life, but while playing, the emotions, excitement, frustration, anticipation feel very real. Play takes place within specific boundaries of time and space. A playground, a classroom corner, or even a chalk circle drawn on the ground can mark the beginning of a play world, which exists only for a certain duration. Play also follows rules that are accepted voluntarily. When children agree to the rules of hide and seek or they follow them not because they must, but because choosing to follow them makes play possible. Importantly, play does not aim at material gain or productivity. Winning a game does not produce anything tangible. Yet, children remain deeply motivated to participate. Despite this, play creates meaning and social bonds. Children who regularly play together develop shared jokes, rituals, and way of understanding one another. People who play together form temporary social groups. A group playing football in a park becomes a team for that moment, even if they return to being strangers afterward. These groups are marked by shared understanding and shared rules, even if those rules disappear once play ends. This framing shows that play is cultural, not just individual. Different cultures have different games, rituals, and play spaces. Play becomes a structured escape from everyday life, but one that reflects social norms, values, and hierarchies. For designers, this is important. Play creates worlds within worlds, and toys often act as gateway into those worlds. Vygotsky described play as something children deeply desire. He argued that play always involves an imaginary situation. Even simple play includes pretending or symbolic meaning. Importantly, play also always involves rules. These rules may not be written or explicit. They exist in the mind of the players. For example, pretending to be a doctor follows special scripts. Children regulate their behavior according to these imagined rules. This shows that play is not chaotic. It has structure even when it looks free. Through this structure, children practice self-control. Rubin and colleagues identified several features that help us recognize when an activity is truly play. First, play is intrinsically motivated. Children play because they want to. For example, a child returning again and again to the same toy car track is doing so out of interest, not because anyone asked them to do. Play focuses on means rather than ends. When a child builds a structure with blocks and then knocks it down, the enjoyment lies in the building and rebuilding, not in finishing something correctly. Play is distinct from exploration and from work. Exploration might involve figuring out how a toy works the first time, while play begins once the child is familiar enough to use it freely. Work, on the other hand, usually has a goal imposed by someone else. Play often involves pretense or non-literal behavior. A cardboard box can become a spaceship, a house, or a shop, even though everyone knows it is just a box. Play is free from externally imposed rules. A child may invent new rules while playing with marbles or change the rules of a game midway if all players agree. Finally, children are actively engaged in play, not passive. Whether they are moving, imagining, negotiating, or deciding what happens next, the child is always an active participant. These features help distinguish play from instruction. They also show why forced play often fails. When adults over-direct, play loses its essence. For designers, this raises questions about control. How much structure is too much? Roger Caillois described play as something that is fundamentally free and voluntary. This means that the moment play is forced, timed, or imposed, it begins to lose its playful quality. A child who chooses to join a game experiences it very differently from a child who is made to play. Kewa also pointed out that play is separate from ordinary life. It happens within its own boundaries of time and spaces. Think of how a classroom corner becomes a play area, or how a game begins only once the board is set up and ends when it's packed away. Outside the boundary, everyday rules return. Another key idea is uncertainty. In play, outcomes are not fully predetermined. Even in game with rules, players don't know who will win, what move will come next, or how the experience will unfold. This uncertainty is what keeps play engaging. Kewa also emphasized that play is unproductive in economic terms. Playing a games does not create goods, earn money, or complete tasks. Yet people invest time, effort, and emotion into it. This tells us that play is motivated by experience, not output. Play is governed by rules, but these rules are different from everyday laws. For example, in a game, a small plastic token may represent wealth, power, or little, or life itself, but only within the play world. Once the game ends, those meanings disappear. Play also involves make-believe or alternate realities. Children pretending to run a shop, players inhabiting a fantasy world, or even adults role-playing in games are all stepping into realities that exist only during play. What's important is that Kaiwa observed these features across cultures. Whether we look at children's games, traditional rituals, or spontaneous street play, these characteristics appear again and again. For designers, this tells us that play is not random chaos. It is a structured, culturally shared experience that operates by its own logic. Jordan Burghardt approached play from a slightly different angle than many other scholars. Instead of focusing only on children, he studied play across many species, including mammals, birds, and reptiles. This broader view helped him identify features of play that go beyond culture or language. One of his key observations is that play has no immediate practical function. For example, a puppy chasing its own tail or a child repeatedly jumping off a low step is not accomplishing a task. The action itself is the point. Burghardt also noted that play is often pleasurable, but surprisingly energetically expensive. Animals and children invest real effort and energy into play, even though there is no direct reward like food or safety. Play often involves exaggerated or awkward movements. A kitten's clumsy pounce or a child's overly dramatic fall during pretend fighting looks different from real hunting or real conflict. Another important pattern is that play occurs most often in juveniles. This suggests that play is closely tied to development rather than survival. Burghardt also identified play signals, cues that indicate that this is play. Think of exaggerated smiles, laughter, or playful tones that signals reduced threat. Because of these signals, play carries less seriousness and lower stakes. Mistakes don't carry lasting consequences. The outcomes of play are not final. A fall, a loss, or failed attempt does not end the experience. It invites repetition. From this perspective, play has deep evolutionary roots. It prepares individuals for real life skills without the pressure of real life risk. Designers should remember that playful experiences should allow experimentations, mistakes, and recovery without punishment or permanent failure. Peter Gray synthesized decades of play research. He concluded that most definitions converge on 5 features. What he noticed was something important. Despite differences in terminology, most scholars were actually describing very similar experiences when they talked about play. From this synthesis, Gray identified 5 core features that tend to appear whenever an activity truly feels like play. First, play is safely chosen and self-directed. The child decides when to begin, how to engage, and when to stop. The moment this choice is removed, the experience starts to feel like obligation rather than play. Second, play is intrinsically motivated. Children are not playing to earn rewards, praise, or outcomes. The motivation comes from within the experience itself. Third, play often involves rules. But these rules are flexible and open to reinterpretation. Children may agree on rules, bend them, renegotiate them, or abandon them altogether if the play demands it. Fourth, play is imaginative. Even when children are dealing with real materials or realistic scenarios, there is often an added layer of as if a transformation of meaning that separates play from everyday activity. Finally, play occurs in a relaxed but alert mental state. Children are deeply focused yet not anxious or pressured. This balance allows attention without stress, effort without fear. What makes Gray's framing especially useful for educators and designers is that it focuses on experience, not form. It does not ask what the activity looks like. It asks how it feels to the player. This means that even structured activity can feel playful if they preserve choice, imagination, and intrinsic motivation. For designers, this flexibility is crucial. It demands us that inclusive design is not about removing structure, but preserving agency and emotional safety within it. E.G. Scott described play as a sequence of emotional elements, namely anticipation, surprise, pleasure, understanding, strength, and poise. These elements loop, not progress linearly. Play deepens over time through repetition. This model shows play as a process, not a moment. Designers can emphasize different elements intentionally, but remember, not all play needs all elements equally. Play often begins before anything actually happens. Anticipation is the moment of curiosity, the sense of something is about to unfold. Think of a child waiting for their turn in a game, or slowly opening a mystery box, or winding up a toy and pausing just before it activates. This feeling of anticipation pulls the child into the experience. For designers, anticipation is created through cues, hidden outcomes, partial information, suspense, or gradual reveal. Without anticipation, play struggles to begin. Surprise is what disrupts predictability. Something's unexpected happens, a sound, a movement, a result the child did not foresee. A toy pops open, a structure collapses, a game outcome changes suddenly. Surprise creates laughter, delight, or even brief frustration, but it keeps play alive. From a design perspective, surprise does not mean chaos. It means allowing room for unexpected, so the experience does not become flat or repetitive. Pleasure is what keeps children coming back to play. It might be laughter, satisfaction, sensory enjoyment, or a feeling of this feels good. A child may repeat the same action again and again, squeezing, spinning, jumping, rebuilding, not to reach the goal, but because the experience itself is enjoyable. Pleasure reinforces engagement. For designers, this reminds us that play does not need to justify itself with learning outcomes. Enjoyment is not a bonus, it is essential. As play continues, children begin to notice patterns. They start predicting what will happen, adjusting their actions, and making sense of how things work. For example, a child realizes how much force is needed to roll a ball further, or how a game mechanic responds to certain moves. This understanding is not taught, it is discovered. For designers, this highlights the importance of feedback and consistency, so children can form mental models through play. Strength emerges when children feel capable. They begin to take pride in what they can do, building higher, balancing longer, solving faster, or inventing more complex stories. This is not just physical strength, but emotional and psychological strength. Mistakes become manageable, not threatening. Designers support this by offering challenges that are achievable but not obvious, allowing children to experience effort without defeat. Poise is the quiet outcome of sustained play. It shows up as emotional balance, the ability to stay calm through excitement, frustration, and uncertainty. A child who can lose a game and try again, or pause and adjust their strategy, is demonstrating poise. This quality often extends beyond play into daily life. For designers, poise reminds us that play can regulate, not overstimulate, helping children find rhythm, balance, and calm. These 6 elements do not form a straight line. They loop, overlap, or repeat. Anticipation leads to surprise, pleasure draws children back, understanding builds strength, and poise allows the cycle to begin again. Not all play experiences include all 6 elements. For designers, this is powerful. We can intentionally emphasize certain elements depending on the kind of experience we want to support. Play is not a moment, it is a process we design for. Let us take 2 examples to illustrate how these elements might show up during play. With dominoes, anticipation builds as players draw their tiles and scan their hand, wondering, will I be able to play first? What might other have? With the maze puzzle ball, anticipation is more individual. The moment you see the ball, you are curious about the path inside and whether you can guide the marble to the end. In both cases, anticipation pulls the player into the experience before action begins. Surprise enters, the expectations are disrupted. In dominoes, surprise happens when the opponent plays an unexpected tile and suddenly blocks the board. In the maze puzzle, surprise comes when the marble slips into a hidden channel or falls through an opening you did not anticipate. Surprise keeps play alive. It prevents the experience from becoming mechanical or predictable. Pleasure is what keeps players engaged. With dominoes, pleasure may come from social enjoyment, laughter, friendly competition, or the satisfaction of making a clever move. With the maze puzzle, pleasure is quieter and more focused. The tactile joy of rotating the ball and watching the marble respond, managing to make the ball reach a particular place. These are different kinds of pleasure, but equally important for sustainable play. As play continues, understanding begins to form. In dominoes, players start recognizing patterns, which numbers appear often, which moves close options, how strategy unfolds over time. In the maze puzzle, understanding comes from learning the internal logic of the maze, how gravity, rotation, and timing affect the marble. This understanding is discovered, not instructed. It emerges through repeated interaction. Strength shows up as confidence and mastery. A dominoes player who once hesitated how play decisively predicts others' moves and handles losses calmly. A child using the maze puzzle gradually steadies their hands, plans rotations, and completes more complex sections without panic. Strength here is not just skill, it's resilience and trust in one's own ability. And finally, poise. Poise is the emotional balance that develops through sustained play. In dominoes, poise appears when players wait their turn, accept losing a round, or stay engaged without frustration. In the maze puzzle, poise shows up when the marble falls back to the start and the child calmly tries again instead of giving up. This emotional steadiness often carries beyond play into everyday challenges. A child who has spent time with challenging puzzle learns that failure is temporary. Later, in a non-play situation like struggling with a homework problem or learning to tie their shoelaces, the child shows the same behavior. Instead of getting overwhelmed or giving up immediately, they persist, adjust their approach, and try again. Let me close this lecture by stepping back for a moment. Today, we did not talk about materials. We did not talk about manufacturing. We did not talk about markets. We talked about play. And what you should now realize is this: play is not a simple activity. It is not just movement. It is not just fun. And it is not just preparation for learning. Play is how children explore the world. It is how they test emotions. It is how they practice relationships. It is how they build identity. And it is how they learn resilience without fear. Across all theories, we saw Huizinga, Vygotsky, Rubin, Kaiwa, Burghardt, Gray, E.G. Scott. One message keeps repeating: play is not defined by objects. It is defined by experience. Toys do not create play on their own. Play emerges through the child, the context, the culture, and the affordances we design. And understanding play deeply is the first step towards designing toys that truly matters. See you in the next lecture. Till then, have a joy-packed fun.